Good morning and welcome to my YouTube channel. This morning I'm at the wonderful Glencoe and you can see the Three Sister Mountains, and then that pass up between the two ridges is the pathway up to the secret valley or the lost valley of Glencoe. So I'm here to get down to the river at the bottom here. So the last time I was here I got kind of chased away by the midges, so I'm hoping this morning there's not too many midges. So join me and let's see where this journey takes us. Well, there's not a lot of water, but actually that might work in my favour. So I've seen a composition. I'll just turn the camera around. So I've seen a composition here. We've got the big rock, the way the sun's shining, it's nice. I've got some nice shadows. The sun's reflecting off the trees. Normally this is all covered in water, so I've never actually been here before when it's this low. So what I'll do is I'll walk to the edge of the water, I'll look for compositions, and then I'll catch back with you. So I'm down here, and the composition I'm going for is, as you can see, there's a big rock in the middle, there's two rocks in the foreground, and then there's like a kind of ledge on the left hand side. So the water's coming round, it's sweeping past this big rock on the right hand side, but I've got all the light on the trees, but I've also got the light on the ledge. So what I want to try and do is I'm going to do a wide shot to encapsulate the whole scene, and because the top half of the image is really bright, I'm going to have to use an ND filter. So effectively put a set of sunglasses down on the top half of the image, and then that allows me to get a right exposure for the bottom half, and then later on if I need to I can lift the shadows, but I've still protected the highlights. Then I'll zoom in, and then what I'll do is I'll use that rock and that rock as a frame. I'll get the two rocks and the big rock in the frame, and hopefully that composition will help sweep round. And I'm interested in the ledge. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out because there's quite a lot of highlights on it, but it looks quite nice. So if I can get further round and try and shoot that direction, I'll take some images. So that's the plan. Let's see how it works. Alright, so I've lowered the camera down a little bit, and I've got a 13th of a second f8 ISO 100. I'm just focusing in on the little ledge at the background, and the reason I'm doing that is there's some quite nice reflections at the back. I'm just going to double check, because what I want to try and do is make sure I've got a nice image with the water. Right, so oh boy, right, so here's what I'm trying to do. I've got, when I took that shot it's fine, but there's movement in the water. Well, it's frozen the movement in the water. But what I want to try and do is smooth the water down. So if you think about your composition and then you think about your exposure and how you're going to capture the image, I want to smooth down the water. So it's a really bright morning. So what have I got to play with? So to get smooth water, or smoothish water, not completely milky, I want a 1/4 of a second. Then I need to lower my ISO to the lowest. So I've got ISO 50, and then I've increased my f-stop or my aperture to f16. So by slowing down my shutter speed, that brightens up my exposure. So to bring down my exposure, I bring down my ISO, and that's still not good enough. Then I have to increase my aperture. So that's why I've jumped from f8 to f16, and that gives me a dark enough image that allows me to take this shot and then just smoothing out the water just so subtly. So what I'll do is I'll take a number of shots here, and I'll do some verticals, I'll do some landscape shots. I'll zoom in, I'll zoom out, and I'll share those images with you now. Alright, so My little midgy friends are out. Not as much, they're not as bad as the last time where I couldn't even see because they were so bad. But I've got a nice wee composition here. So what I've got is the big rock, I've got the little trickly water on the right hand side, I've got a tree right above it, and then I've got the mountains in the background. So because I've got my filters on, I've got my polarizer and I've got an ND6 grad filter, I'm really dependent on my histogram to show me the exposure. So I've set it up so that my kind of highlight are just in from the edge and my shadows are just in and my histogram's in the middle. So that means I've got all my highlights and all my shadows, so that if I need to adjust it in Lightroom, then I can. So what I'll do is, I've taken quite a number of shots. So I walked across, I jumped over the rocks here, and I went over to that rock there, and I took shots up the river. So what I'll do is I'll share those images with you. And now that I've taken these shots, what I'll do is I'll share these images with you, and then what we'll do is we'll move on and we'll find a new location. Alright, so as I'm walking closer to the edge of the river, wow, it's really low. So what I'll do is I'll turn the camera around and you can see what I see. So normally that gorge is raging with water and it's usually pretty spectacular. These rocks here are normally soaking wet, which is a good thing today because I won't be slipping because they're dry. And then down here is where we usually have the top of the iconic waterfall that then looks on to the three sister mountains. But what I'll do is I'll work my way down and I'll start over here, and then we'll look back up into the gorge and we'll see if there's a nice waterfall opportunity, and if there is, I'll talk you through it. Alright, so before I move over the rocks, as I was walking past, I just seen this. I'll turn the camera around to see if you can see. So we've got this bush sticking out for the side of the rocks, but we've got all this really clear reflection in the water. It's absolutely glorious. So what I'll do is, as I'm watching this footage, if you can't see it properly, I've taken 2 or 3 shots, and if they turn out, I'll share those images with you. Right, now let's go and move over to the rocks. So this is the lagoon I was talking about, and you can see the waterfall. So that waterfall is normally coming up right at the level at the top of those rocks, is normally where it's really in spate, and it's usually pretty spectacular. However, it's not too bad. There is shade, however. I'm going to take some shots here before the light starts to hit it, because as you can see here, the light's getting closer and closer, but I can manage that when I set up my exposure. So what I'll do is I'll get set up. I might have to change lenses as well, so I'll use the 24-70 to get the wide angle lens, or the wide angle view, and then I might put on the 70-200 lens and zoom right in. But let's start with a 24-70 and I'll talk you through what I'm doing. Alright, so what I've got here is I've got quite a dark right hand side and a very bright left hand side. So how am I going to manage this composition? Right, so to set the exposure here, what I've done is I've turned the filter round and I've put the filter on the left hand side, and what that does is it kind of dulls down all the brightness on the left hand side. I've had to increase my shutter speed because when I've dulled this side down, that side went really dark. So I've just moved it up a stop from a quarter of a second to a third of a second. Then what I've done is, when I did that, it was still too dark. So what I wanted to do then was not play about with my shutter speed, because I still want that milkiness in the water, because I really like a smooth waterfall, and I want to smoothen out the water as much as I can. So I reduced my aperture from f16 to f14, and then I've left my ISO at ISO 50. So by increasing my shutter speed, that allows me to maintain the streaks in the water, give me a little bit more brightness. My filter helps with the highlights on the left hand side, and then to brighten the scene up a wee bit more, that's what I did by reducing the f-stop from f16 to f14. So my focus is on the waterfall, and I'm taking a wide angle shot. So what I'll do now is I'll take 2 or 3 different shots. I'm going to zoom in, so maybe do a 24, a 35 and a 70 with this lens, and then what I'll do is I'll switch over to the long lens. But for now, I'll share the images that I've taken here with you. Alright, so I've switched to the long lens, and I've just been tweaking my settings just a little bit because I'm closer, it's darker in there. But because I'm using the long lens, another trick with a long lens is make sure you've set your focus, then switch your lens to manual, but also take your stabilizer setting off, because what you don't want is any kind of shake from the image stabilizer in the lens and that autofocus potentially hunting when you don't want it to. So the only difference here is because I'm shooting closer, it's darker. So I've still maintained my 1/8 of a second shutter speed. I've still maintained my ISO 50, but I've reduced my aperture to f7.1. So I'm getting a really nice composition here because I'm in really tight. I'm doing that vertical shot. So I've got the waterfall at the top, and then I've got all the space down below, and that's important for your composition because you need the water to flow somewhere. So it's similar to taking photographs of cars. So when you're at a motorsport event and you're panning for a car, if you pan and the back of the car's on the left hand side and the front of the car is on your right side of your frame, give it that bit of space because the car needs space to go into. If you crop it too tight, it's not going to be as good an image as you give it a wee bit more space and that allows it to go into. It's the same principle here. I could take a shot of just the waterfall, and yeah, it might be quite nice because some of the textures at the top of the waterfall where it flows into a V could be quite nice, but it's not the same as giving it space and giving the water somewhere to go. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn the camera over to landscape. I'll take a couple of more shots, so I'm at maximum 70mm zoom, so I'm zoomed right in just now. I'll take 2 or 3 images here. I'll draw back a little bit to maybe 135. I'll get a wider image of the scene, and then I'll pull back to 70, and I'll see if I can get some of the trees in the scene as well. And then once I've finished that, I'll share those images with you. So I'm getting down really low here. I'm just watching I didn't slip. Right. So we spoke about earlier of getting separation of the trees. So I've had to go really low because in order to get separation from the mountains, what I've tried to do here is get the tree in the V. So between those two mountains there's a gap, and I've got the tree now. It's a shame the tree's spoiled by the ridge at the top of the Three Sisters, but at the same time it just helps you understand what I mean by separation. So I've got the tree in the V, and I've got the two of the Three Sisters in front of me, and the composition that I'm using here is a vertical composition or a portrait, because what I'm doing is I'm using the cracks in the rock as a leading line. I'm focusing in on the tree, and what I'm also doing is I'm focusing in on the mountains, and that's actually a really nice image. So it's a shame the water's low, but to be fair, I'm going to venture over there in a wee minute to take some shots to see if there's anything worth a photo, because normally the water's raging over there. The bit that's really caught my eye is the pool of water right below me. I'm going to focus in on the tree first. I'll take that shot, and then I'm going to focus in on the rock at the base of the pool of water. And yeah, right, so if those rock pool images turn out, I'll share those images with you now. Right, so I'm sticking with the wide lens for a wee while because this whole place just demands that vista that you get with a wide angle lens, because it's just incredible. So even though there's not a lot of water, there's still rock pools. So the other thing is I'm now going to get access to areas where I've never been before. So like the other side of the waterfall here, I've never been there before because I've never been able to get across the river because there's been too much water. And likewise down the bottom here, I could probably get lower and look for shots of the rock pools because I've never been able to get access before. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to work my way around the scene. So I've got this amazing view of the Three Sisters. I've got the waterfall in front of me. There's another stream flowing down to the right hand side coming into the river, and they're then working their way down through the rocks over into the big massive waterfall, and then flows down towards the loch. So I'll take a couple of shots here. I'll do a vertical, see if there's anything I can do with the trees and the Three Sisters, and then once I've done that I'll share those images with you. Right, well, I have just found an absolute cracking little scene where it's a little waterfall flowing down this burn. I think I'm going to... Right, so what I'll do is, you're not going to see me on camera, so what I'll do is I'll take the shot, and then the shots I take of this little waterfall, I'll share these with you now. Alright, so hopefully that wee image has worked out, but I'll tell you what I've got here. Got a pretty special wee water fall. I need to watch because it's quite slimy and slippy. So if I can just secure the camera, this will have to be a vertical shot. So let's get this set up, because ideally what I want is all the water in the image. Alright, so if I turn round and let me have a wee look at what we've got without slipping or falling. Whoops. There we go. Right. See, the only thing with me standing here is I'm casting my shadow. Ideally I'm better over there. Alright, so I had to stand further back from where I was. Oops, I'm just slipping everywhere because of the slime that's on the rocks. I need to watch. But I'll show you what I've got. So from my camera here, I had to pull back because when I went down there, what I couldn't see was the gap. So those gaps where the water's flowing down over into the rocks to get to the waterfall, I couldn't see that from that location because it was too low. So I've came back here, I've taken those shots. Then what I've also done is I've done a wider angle to take in the trees and take in the Three Sisters. And what I'll do is I'll share those images with you now. Wow. Well, I have to say, it's absolutely glorious. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. So, there's a massive drop over the other side, and there's a big, huge pool of water. But I can't, there's no image that side. It's just too tricky to try and get across. If I went to that peak where I was standing a wee minute ago, my shadow's casting right on the water. However, there's a ridge over here on the far right. So if I climb up to the top of that ridge, set my camera up, I might get quite a nice vista shot of the water flowing down beside me, converging with the 3 or 4 different streams as it goes over the top of the waterfall into the pool. So I'll get set up and I'll catch back with you soon. Alright, so I did a test shot and the sun's just far too bright for that ND grad. So I'm having to use a 10 stop filter. So I'm going to put the 10 stop on just now and hope that gives me more to play with. Oh wow, it does. Fabulous. Right, so if I see how far I can go. Wow. Right, so I can get F8 with a 30-second exposure. Oh geez, that's going to absolutely make all this water as milky as anything. Right, so I'll take this shot and I'll try it. What I was hoping to try and do is to capture everything and get the sweep of the water coming in before it goes over. But that might not be possible. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is, rather than use up all the battery, I'm going to take 2 or 3 images. What I'll do is I'll do a couple more from up here. It's just it's now getting really, really bright because the sun's overhead. And then what I'll do is I'll take these images and then I'll share these images with you now. And then what I'll do is I'll catch up with you. I'm going to try and get a wee bit lower over here and then we'll finish up here. Alright, so that was nice. Hopefully those images turned out. What I'm doing here is I'm just having a wee play around on compositions here because I'm using a vertical shot because I'm conscious my shadow is in the way here. So I'm focusing more to the left, but I'm following the stream as it goes down over into the waterfall. And then there's a little stream trickling along the top of that rock that converges down the bottom and then they go through a single rut. So I've got a 25th of a second. I've had to lower my aperture to f7.1 and I've still got ISO 50, but it's still really bright because of the sun. I really hope the highlights in this water, because I'm using a 10-stop filter, doesn't detract from the image at all. It's difficult because the sun's now becoming overhead, and it's an absolute beautiful location with this low water. I wasn't sure what to expect when I came. But the reason I love these locations, especially in Glencoe, you're surrounded by all the mountains. If I stop talking, you'll hear you've got that peace, that quiet. You've got the noise of the water flowing. You get the odd bird every now and again. There's a couple of dippers back up there, and it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. So I'll take a couple more shots here, and when I'm finished, I'll share those images with you. Alright, so I think we'll finish the video here. I hope you like it. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because you know it's free. And if you press the bell notification, that'll let you know the next time I post a video. So thanks very much for watching, and here's to the next video.